for like magic systems and stuff. So you wrote I think I had to say this. We'll say game mechanics. So like the mechanics of how things work. So there's the Lord of the Rings version, which is kind of the soft magic. Yeah, we don't really know how it works. It just Gandalf can do a few things and that's it. And then you have the Sanderson version, which is all the rules and everything. Do you find, first off, I don't know if you have a soft or hard magic system. I find if I'm just kind of discovery writing, but I don't know how that magic system works or how the piece of world building works, or like if you're on a planet, how the planet works, that like I know the story, but the mechanics of things sometimes trip me up and then I get stuck. Does that happen to you? And then how do you work through that?
Yeah, it definitely did. Like I knew I had a really strong idea of this magic system, but I didn't know all the rules. And so that was definitely fleshed out in all the drafting, like in all the subsequent. And then eventually I actually went and wrote the Book of Oaths, which is like their law. And so I've been writing the law.
Right.
So now I can go back and reference my own sort of rules that we're following here and stuff.
Right.
But that's getting fleshed out kind of more and more. And now like I'm just nearing the end of book 2 with it. And it's, it's funny because that seed of an idea, you're like, oh, this is much bigger. It's just grown over time, but I think it's happened fairly organically. But that's why I wanted to have book 2 pretty much done by the time book 1 came out, because if I needed to retrofit any sort of like structural stuff, I wanted to be able to do that really, so that I wasn't trying to like patch it in with, hand waving later sort of thing. So the magic system in Earthbound was inspired by, so kind of random and obscure, but are you familiar with the story of Samson, the old Bible story? So, he's a big, strong guy. And the whole basis of it was this like vow that they talk about. I think it's called like the Nazarite vow or whatever. So, he couldn't cut his hair and he couldn't do certain things. And because of that, as long as he followed those rules, he had power and he was like superhuman strong.
Yeah.
And I just found that fascinating. I just thought that was so interesting, because he wasn't really a moral character. Like he did some really terrible things in those stories. And then, as a kid, when I would hear it, it always sounded like he was the hero because in the end, he's the hero. But, when you look at it closer, I'm like, oh, this guy's kind of something a little gritty about his story that I was kind of intrigued by. So I thought I wanted to play with a magic system that wasn't linked to necessarily a moral code. It was linked to an adherence to this kind of set of laws and rules. And so the whole sort of society is set up around this religious order and this sort of mysticism of like, okay, well, if you swear an oath, you get power from the sky, and like this is how it all works. And so I guess it would lean a little bit more hard, just because it has these set structures, but it's not terribly complicated. It's not Sanderson-esque like that way. I'm like, don't have that sort of you need all the list of medals and everything at the end of the book to really understand it. It's not like that, but there is very structured sort of way that the power is manipulated.
Yeah, I like magic systems that I probably lean more towards. I like hard magic systems, and that I like figuring out the rules and how it works and all that. But I always want to leave a little spot for some soft magic of like, you don't quite understand, because I think that adds just a little more intrigue. Like you want to, not enough that it frustrates the reader of like, well, this doesn't make any sense, but just enough that it's like, I think that's why like Gandalf is a great character, because he'll just do something. You're like that's, like it just,
you pulled that out of nowhere.
Like it just adds this level of like, because, for the most part, he seems like this unassuming old wizard guy. And then he like fights the Balrog and you're like, whoa, So I think having that little element of like, it's not really explained really works.
Yeah, I hope so, because I lean into that a lot.
Yeah.
Because, like the whole thing is this is a very secret order. So we just we start off just knowing that something is like one of the characters doesn't have power anymore and we don't know why. And so it's like kind of the slow unfolding of like what's happening, what's the larger politics, what's at play. And that's part of like, hopefully what pulls people forward is like trying to figure out, okay, what's actually going on here. And then hopefully in book 2, bringing that home and with a satisfying sort of ending.
Well, I think it leans into, like, as a human, we're always learning. So even if you're like the best in your field or the top of your field, there's still always something to learn. And so I think for me anyways, it feels like it just leans into that of, I'm really good at this thing, but there's still something I don't know. And so I don't know.
Yeah. Which isn't that the best part about writing? Like, I love the idea of craftsmanship. It's not just like a skill. Like, obviously there's skill involved, but the process of becoming more and more a master of your craft is like such a inspiring thought to me, because it's not about being perfect any one step of the way. It's that, like you said, it's being willing to like continue to learn and explore and create and push yourself forward, I think.